what actually is asset management? So if I'm in the pub and people ask me what I do, usually, to be honest, they regret it pretty quickly. And who can blame them? Because who really knows what asset management is? Is it an IT system? Is it a set of processes? Is it something to do with finance, maybe, like hedge funds or something? Well, we're going to have a look at a quick example and dispel some of the myths. So this is Jim. He's our CEO in Highways England. But for a minute, I want you to put yourself in Jim's position and think, how would you manage Highways England if you were CEO? So how would you manage the strategic roads network? I suppose, first of all, we need to think about what it is that Highways England actually does, first of all. So if I asked those same people in the pub, they'd probably say mainly roadworks and traffic officer vehicles, the people that drive up and down our network and clear incidents and debris. And that is right, but we do a lot more on top of that as well. So we build new parts of our network, and we expand upon what's already there. We have several regional control centres in each of our regions that set our signs and signals and manage demand and capacity on the network. And of course, we have to maintain everything that we own as well. So asset management impacts on all of those areas, but for the purpose of this example, just focus on the one maintenance down there, which is one of our biggest areas of work. So if we think about what it is that we've got to maintain, so in Highways England, we own lots of things like structures, so bridges, gantries, other structures as well. We own hundreds of thousands of technology assets, so not just those variable message signs and signals that I mentioned earlier, but things like CCTV, roadside telephones, and lots of the little things you wouldn't necessarily think about, like ambient light monitors that dim the signs and signals at night and make them brighter when the sun's shining, all of the telecommunications infrastructure that supports all that as well. We own thousands of miles of drainage under our carriageways to stop it from flooding and puddles occurring. We're one of England's biggest landowners as well. And of course, we own the actual roads themselves. All of those things need maintaining to make sure we don't get potholes, to make sure the barriers are safe, to make sure we don't get landslips and technology outages and flooding. And if we maintain all of those things properly, we'll be saving our customers time, and we could even be saving their lives as well. So it is important. So if I'm giving you a pot of money to do all that, Jim, then how are you best going to do it? So we could think about a common sense approach here, couldn't we? So people call into us all the time with things that are wrong on the network, potholes, bits of barrier that are missing, flooding. What we could do is keep a list of all those things, go out there, get it fixed as soon as it happens, right? Sounds like a pretty sensible thing to do. We could also get those traffic officers that I mentioned to report in faults as well as they find them, add them to the list of things that need doing. And on top of that, just to cover all bases, we can employ some inspectors to go out there whose job it is solely to look for things that need fixing, inspect things like our structures to make sure they're safe. So this sounds like a really sensible, good value way of doing things, doesn't it? But the issue is, we've got a really bad pothole on the network there. Something that's quite dangerous, people are actively having to avoid it, but it could take a little while before somebody actually finds the right phone number, reports it to somebody, it gets through to us. And then, of course, we've got to spend some time to work out how we're going to fix that. We've got to get the right people in place to fix it with the right skills. We've got to sort out traffic management, schedule that bit of work, and actually get people out on site as well. So it could actually take a little while before that's fixed, and obviously that can cause delays, reputational damage for Highways England, and it can be dangerous as well. Also, on the other end of the scale, we've got a small drainage issue up there now, so that's causing a few puddles on the network. It's not on the same scale as the last one, so it's not particularly important. We can probably do some of the more important stuff first. And there's lots of other important stuff to be doing, so it does slip down the priority order a little bit. And it could be a little bit of time before we can actually get out to fix that small drainage issue. In the meantime, of course, there could be a storm, a bit of a downpour, and that seemingly small issue could turn into something quite important, really, something that closes the network. Our customers are suddenly running into that in the middle of the night, and it could, again, be quite dangerous. So on the surface, it does seem like a sensible approach, but are we actually getting best value for money here? And it's not my money at the end of the day, it's not Highways England's money, it's all our money, it's all taxpayers' money that we're spending. And so we need to make sure we're getting best value from every penny of that we spend. What we really need, of course, is to be able to see into the future a little bit. We need to be able to know what's going to go wrong before it happens. And that way we can be ahead of the curve, we know what's going to go wrong, and we get out there and fix it as soon as possible. Minimal impact. we're not psychic, but what we can do, and what Housing England is doing, and certainly what the group I'm working in is doing in the Asset Information Group, is using the huge amount of data that we have available. So we've got tons and tons of data, and we're using some really innovative bits of software now with our partners like CIHT, who's speaking after me, to actually get better value from that data and use it, put it to work to make more intelligent decisions. Because we've got data on all of the assets that we have, when they're installed, when they're likely to fail, based on previous experience, how long they're designed to last in the first place, who fixed them, what faults they've had when the inspections have been done, tons and tons of stuff. And with our technology assets, of course, they report faults to us in real time as well. So there's tons and tons of stuff we can be analysing. And by knowing exactly what's happened in the past and why it's happened, we can start to better predict what's likely to happen in the future and what we can do to prevent it. And then that way, we can be ahead of the game. We can know not only what's going to be going wrong today and help to prevent that from happening, we can know what maintenance is needed tomorrow, next year, and we're even starting to plan 30 years ahead now, knowing what's coming up in the future. And as well as helping to prevent the obvious failures, incidents, we can start to think about how much money we're going to need in the future to actually do all that maintenance, and the people we're going to need and the sort of skills that they need. And where there is maintenance required, we can think about when the quieter times are to do that maintenance, to make less impact on the network. And if it is a particularly big bit of work, we can give our customers plenty of notice to allow them to make better decisions about their journeys. We can also start to think about criticality a bit then as well. So if we know all that data and we know what's happened in the past and what failures result from the initial faults, we can start to think about what faults might be more critical than others. What are the most important assets? If they fail, what are the things that are going to cause real problems on our network? And which are the most important parts of the network as well, and when? So if we've got events at certain times of the year, for example, summer holiday times on the M5 near Bristol, it's very important to keep that bit of the network open then, because it can cause serious issues if it's closed. And we can start to really prioritise things, not based on which of our customers shout the loudest, for example, or which things appear on the surface to be the most important to fix, but based on real evidence, and actually start to make much better decisions about the work that we're doing. So this is just one part of asset management. So we're not fighting fires anymore. We're being more proactive, getting the best value from our assets while they're working, and only intervening when they're likely to fail. So it's not just a project or an IT system or a set of processes or competencies. It's all of these things connecting and working together to get the very best value for all taxpayers' money that we spend in Housing England.
When you plan big asset management events, and you say about allowing people to pre-plan their route, do you liaise with the other transport bodies to kind of so they're not doing asset management work at the same time?
As you can imagine, we've got a huge number of different stakeholders, and we do regular work with all of them. We meet with them regularly, and I think we have quite a good idea of other events that are happening on the network now, and we do liaise with other people quite a lot to make sure that not only the things that we're doing cause minimal disruption, but the things are scheduled so they don't interfere with other things outside of our control as well. So there is a lot of work that goes on in that area now.
Hi there, Dan Tratham from Skanska. I just wondered how you see the split between investment in asset management and maintenance versus the money that's spent on developing and investing in new roads and infrastructure, and whether you see that it's the right sort of split proportionally for the work that you've got to be doing.
I think it's important to note that asset management doesn't just cover maintenance, probably. So I don't think it's such an issue of how much money is spent on the maintenance side of asset management and asset management in that area versus the amount spent on new schemes, because it should all be joined together. And not only should we be maintaining efficiently the things that we do own, but we should be thinking how best to prioritise new things as well. So not just prioritising maintenance, but prioritising new schemes as well, working on future modelling and future asset needs, and trying to meet those needs rather than doing the things that we think are correct, doing the things that we know will be right based on future trends as well. So I don't think it's not prioritising one over the other. I think it's got to work together in a very connected way, probably.
You spoke about using past patterns to kind of predict failure. How do you kind of reconcile that against the fact that your asset may be changing in terms of demands on its usage, even perhaps in the future where we may not have roads at all? How do you manage that conflict in demand?
Yeah, it is difficult. And I think listening to Ian earlier from DFT talk about the future demands that are going to be on our network, I think it is quite hard to do that, because obviously we can use all the data we've got in the past based on what's happened in the past. But if things are happening very differently in the future, then that data becomes less and less valuable. And so we've got to kind of blend that with a good guess of what might happen in the future. So it is quite a difficult balance to do, but we've got lots of innovative software, and the partners that we work with are really good at analysing that sort of data and information and looking at trends and working out how we balance spend and focus in that way. But yeah, there's no easy answer to it, I don't think. I think nobody really knows a lot of the effects that's going to have on our network, and so it is quite hard to predict. But autonomous vehicles, for example, they are designed to work on the network as it is. And so our network isn't going to have to change too much to adapt to that, probably. The main area that we're working on is data, because autonomous vehicles depend quite a lot on data and making sure that we can provide data into the cars. So, for example, we have signs and signals that show where there's queues ahead and advisory and mandatory speed limits. We need to look at how we're sending that to the cars as well to help them make better decisions. So there is a lot of thinking going on in that area, but it's not an easy thing to do, probably, I'd say.